San Francisco, early 70s. The city lived its bustling life. Streetcars clanged at intersections, shop windows glowed with neon lights, and the streets were filled with the mingled scents of coffee, cheap cigarettes, and sea wind. Young people in bright shirts discussed music, protests, freedom. The world seemed light and noisy, as if the war was somewhere far away, in another universe. But for him, for the soldier, recently discharged from the hospital, this world was foreign. Every sound of the city reminded him of the roar of explosions. Every shout on the street echoed like commands in the jungle. He walked along the sidewalk, leaning on his crutch, and felt how passers-by cast furtive glances at his body, mutilated by war. In their eyes there was curiosity, sometimes pity, but never understanding. He stopped at a phone booth. The metal door creaked as he stepped inside. The cramped space smelled of iron and dust. He pulled out a few coins, placed them in his palm, and stared at them for a long time, as if deciding whether it was worth calling. His chest burned. The fear of rejection, and the hope that his parents would still accept him. They must understand. I am their son. I came back alive, though not the same as when I left. But if they see me right away, if they see what I've become, will they be able to bear it? Maybe it's better to say there's a friend who has nowhere to go. Let them hear that first, and then they will know the truth. He dialed the number. The rings dragged on painfully long, each one feeling like a step into the abyss. Finally, his mother's voice, warm, tired, but familiar. Hello. Mom. It's me. I'm coming home. Son. Her voice trembled. My God. We've waited for this day. He closed his eyes, pressing the receiver to his ear. Inside him, two feelings fought, joy and fear. Mom. Dad. I have a request. I want to bring a friend with me. Of course, his mother replied. We'll be glad to meet him. He paused, his heart pounded as if ready to burst out. But you must know something. He was badly wounded. In battle, he stepped on the ground and lost an arm and a leg. He has nowhere else to go. I want him to live with us. On the other end, silence. Then, his father's voice firm, restrained. I'm sorry to hear that, son. But maybe we can help him find housing. No, he said quietly but firmly. I want him to live with us. Son, his father sighed. You don't know what you're asking. A man with such a disability will be a terrible burden for us. We have our own life. We cannot allow something like that to interfere. Come home alone. That fellow will find a way to live on his own. The words struck him like bullets. He gripped the receiver so tightly his fingers turned white. They don't understand. They think I'm talking about someone else. But it's me. I am that friend. I am the one they don't want in their home. He didn't answer. Slowly, he placed the receiver back on the hook. The click of metal sounded like the final chord of a song no one wanted to hear. The booth filled with silence again. Beyond its glass walls, the city kept living. Laughter, music, movement. But inside, only him and emptiness. He stepped out onto the street. The evening wind from the bay struck his face, cold and indifferent. Noisy San Francisco seemed even more alien. The receiver remained hanging in his memory, a symbol of rupture, and in the air, a heavy silence that nothing could drown out. Subscribe to the channel Soldier's Note, where we share stories that must never be forgotten. The jungles of Vietnam lived their own life, dense, humid, as if breathing. Leaves dripped with moisture. The ground was sticky, and the air was heavy, saturated with the smell of rot and gunpowder. In this green hell, every step echoed in the heart. Every sound could mean death. The soldiers moved in a line, cautious but swift. Their faces were covered with sweat and dirt, their eyes tense and alert. Damp helmets gleamed in the rays of sunlight, breaking through the foliage. In the distance, the hum of insects could be heard, but it was drowned out by the rumble of distant gunfire. "Stay close!" shouted the sergeant, his voice sharp like a shot. Our hero, a young soldier who not long ago believed the war would end quickly, marched, clutching his rifle. His fingers trembled, but he forced himself to hold the weapon tightly. Inside him lived a mixture of fear and determination. He thought of home, of his parents, of someday returning. But now, only the jungle, only the battle. Suddenly, a cry tore through the air. Ambush. Everything happened instantly. From the green wall of leaves burst volleys of automatic fire. Bullets sliced through the air, struck trees, earth, bodies. Soldiers threw themselves to the ground. Some screamed, some never had the chance. The roar of explosions mingled with cries. The earth shook. Leaves fell like rain. The smell of gunpowder instantly filled his lungs, burning his throat. He pressed himself to the ground, his heart pounding as if ready to burst out. His ears rang. The world turned into a chaotic whirl of sounds and images. Beside him fell his comrade Johnny, a boy from Texas, always joking, always smiling. Now, his face was twisted in fear. "Hold on," Johnny shouted, but the words drowned in the roar. And then the explosion. A fiery flash tore through space. The earth flew into the air, mixed with blood and sweat. The shockwave hurled him back. He felt pain ripping through his body. First a deafening ringing in his ears, then darkness. And in that darkness, the realization, something was wrong. He tried to rise, but his body would not obey. His gaze fell downward, and the world collapsed completely. His right arm was gone. In its place, a bloody mess, scraps of fabric, earth clinging to the wound. His leg gone too. His left leg seemed torn from his body, blood gushing, staining the ground. A scream burst from his chest, not human, but animal, full of horror and pain. "Medic!" someone shouted nearby. But the medic already lay motionless, his eyes staring into emptiness. He tried to breathe, but the air was thick, as if the jungle itself pressed against his chest. Images flashed in his mind. The faces of comrades, their laughter, their voices. Johnny, who a moment ago was beside him, now lay still, his helmet rolled away. Why did they go, and I stayed? Why me? The thought pierced his consciousness like a bullet. Everything around was chaos. Cries, gunfire, explosions. But for him, the world narrowed to a single point pain. The realization that he would never be the same. He felt the earth beneath him grow sticky with blood. The smell of gunpowder mixed with the smell of iron, with the smell of death. Leaves fell onto his face, stuck to his sweat. And it seemed that nature itself was closing his eyes. Soldiers shouted, fired, fell. Time stretched. Each second was an eternity. He saw comrades running forward, someone falling, someone firing back. But he could no longer move. I am a burden. I am weight. I am the one they will have to drag. This thought was more terrifying than the pain. He tried to lift his head, but the world swayed. Darkness clouded his eyes. The last thing he saw was Johnny's face, motionless, dead. And then he understood. He was alone. Darkness covered him, like the jungle, like the night. He woke later in the hospital. White walls, the smell of antiseptic, the voices of doctors. But the memory of the jungle lived in him like a wound that would never heal. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard the explosion again. Saw blood, earth mixed with sweat, felt the world collapse in a single second. And every time he asked himself the same question, why am I alive? and they are not. That battle scene became his eternal nightmare. It never let him go, day or night. The memories were brighter than reality. The jungle lived in his head, and every step in peaceful life echoed with war. He lost an arm and a leg, but worse, the silence of the hospital was deceptive. White walls, the steady glow of lamps, the smell of antiseptic. All of it was supposed to mean safety. But for him, every night turned into a return to the jungle. As soon as he closed his eyes, he heard again the crackle of automatic fire, felt again the damp air, saturated with gunpowder and blood. He lay on the cot, staring at the ceiling, and saw not a blank surface but faces. Faces of those who had remained there, in the green darkness. Johnny from Texas, who always joked about cowboys and promised to open a bar after the war. Michael, the quiet boy from Ohio, who loved writing letters to his sister. Rodriguez, who wore a cross around his neck and prayed before every battle. They had all been there, until the explosion came. Now they came to him in dreams. "You should have gone with us," Johnny said, his voice sounding as cheerful as before, but his eyes were empty. "Why did you stay?" asked Michael, his face dissolving into smoke. "God took us." "But left you," whispered Rodriguez, and the cross on his chest glowed in the dark. He woke in cold sweat, clutching the sheet as if it were a rifle. In his chest lived guilt heavy as stone. Why did they go? And I stayed. Why me? Every day, he tried to convince himself that he had survived for something, for his parents, for the future. But deep inside, he felt he was a burden, a weight no one wanted to carry. And then the friend appeared. He spoke of him to his parents. But in truth, that friend was a reflection of himself. Maimed, broken, alien. He could not accept himself as he had become. So he invented an image, a man who needed help. But that man was him. In the hospital mirror he saw not himself, but that friend. A stranger's face, a stranger's body. He looked at the stump of his arm, at the emptiness where his leg had been, and did not recognize himself. "I am not a soldier. I am not a son. I am a shadow. I am the one they will not accept." Memories of his comrades grew brighter. Their laughter, their voices, their steps through the jungle. He heard them beside him, as if they walked with him down the hospital corridor. But when he turned, there was only emptiness. These shadows lived in him. They were his memory, his curse. He felt he should have gone with them. But fate had left him here alone, in a foreign world that did not understand his pain. And every evening he went out onto the roof of a building in San Francisco. The city glowed with lights, roared with cars, laughed with the voices of passers-by. But for him, it was another world. A world with no place for shadows. He looked down at the streets and saw not people, but ghosts. Johnny, Michael, Rodriguez, they stood there, below, waiting for him. "You should have gone with us." He stood at the edge of the roof, feeling the cold wind. The city lights reflected in his eyes like the fire of the jungle. And he understood. The past does not let go. It lives in him, like a wound that will never heal. The night in San Francisco was bright, almost festive. The city lights shone like a scattering of stars fallen to the earth. Cars moved across the bridges, their headlights leaving trails of light, and below, on the streets, crowds of people laughed, talked, lived their lives. It seemed as though the world had forgotten the war, forgotten the pain, forgotten those who had returned from the jungles mutilated. He stood on the roof of an old building, leaning on his crutch. The wind from the bay was cold, salty, striking his face like a reminder that he was still alive. But this breath of life felt foreign. They don't know the truth. They think I am bringing a friend, but that friend is me. I am the one they don't want to see. in their home. He closed his eyes. Inside him, the jungle came alive again. The damp air, the smell of gunpowder, the cries of comrades, the explosion, the instant of pain, the loss of an arm and a leg, all of it returned, as though time had never passed. He opened his eyes and saw the city. Lights, movement, laughter. The contrast was unbearable. Down there, people lived, rejoiced, made plans, and he stood on the roof, alone, with a body that no longer belonged to him. I am a shadow. I am a burden. I am the one they rejected. He remembered the conversation with his parents. His mother's voice warm, but confused. His father's voice firm, cold. Their words echoed in his head like a sentence. We cannot allow something like that to interfere with our lives. He gripped the crutch as if it were a weapon. His chest burned. I don't ask for much, he whispered into the emptiness. I only ask to be near, but no one was near. Only the wind, only the city lights. He took a step closer to the edge of the roof. Below the street, the cars, the people. The height was frightening, but at the same time, enticing. If I step, it will all end. The pain, the guilt, the loneliness. I will be with them again. With Johnny, with Michael, with Rodriguez. I will return to where I am awaited. He closed his eyes and imagined their faces. They smiled, called to him. Their voices were quiet, but insistent. You should have gone with us. One stated. The wind grew stronger. It seemed as though the city itself was pushing him forward. He remembered how he once dreamed of coming home, dreamed of his mother embracing him, of his father patting his shoulder. But now he understood. That would never happen. They would not accept him. They would not accept the friend. I am a stranger. Even to them. He looked down. The headlights of cars reflected in his eyes like the fire of the jungle. Below, everything was alive, bright, noisy. Up here, there was silence. He took another step. The crutch scraped against the concrete. Perhaps this is my path. I will not return home. I will return to them. He lifted his head to the sky. The stars were dim, almost hidden by the city lights. But he saw them, and in those stars, he imagined the faces of his comrades. I'm coming, he whispered. Tears welled in his eyes. He had not cried since the day he lost his arm and leg. But now, the tears flowed freely, mixing with the wind. He remembered everything. The laughter of friends, their conversations, their dreams. He remembered how they shared their last cigarette, how they wrote letters home, how they believed they would return. But they did not return, and he returned, but not whole. I am not the one they waited for. I am not the one they loved. I am a shadow. He stood at the edge of the roof, and the world around him seemed alien, below life, above emptiness, and he understood. The choice had already been made. The evening was quiet. In the small house on the edge of town, the familiar cozy atmosphere reigned. The clock on the wall measured seconds with a soft ticking. The lamp above the table glowed with warm yellow light, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee still lingered in the air. The mother sat in an armchair, her hands trembling. She pressed her palms to her chest, as if trying to hold back her heart, which was beating too fast. Her breathing was uneven, as though every word her son had spoken over the phone still echoed in her ears. He said, she whispered. He said he has a friend who lost an arm and a leg. The father stood by the window, looking out at the street. His face was stern. The lines on his forehead deepened. He was silent, but his breathing was heavy, steady, like the blows of a hammer. Did you hear his voice? He finally said. He was tense. But we must be reasonable. We cannot, take on such a burden?" The mother lifted her eyes. In her gaze were doubt, pain, fear. "But he is our son." Her voice faltered. "If he asks, maybe we should help?" The father turned sharply. His steps across the wooden floor were heavy, each strike of his heel echoing in the room. "Help? Yes, but not like that. We can find this man housing, we can pay for his treatment. But to live with us? No. That would destroy our life. Do you understand?" The mother lowered her head. Her hands gripped the fabric of her dress. Her fingers turned white. She could hear her heart pounding in her chest, fast, anxious. "And if—" she hesitated. "And if this friend is him?" The father froze. For a moment his breath faltered. But then he straightened again, as if casting the thought aside. No, he couldn't have said that. He was speaking of someone else. The mother closed her eyes. Inside her lived an unease that gave her no rest. She felt there was something more in her son's words than just a request, but she could not put it into words. The room was warm. The lamp glowed softly. The clock ticked. The air was filled with familiar comfort. But between them, silence, heavy, oppressive. At the same time, in a cold room in San Francisco, he sat on the bed. The walls were bare, the paint peeling, the window let in the cold wind. The bulb on the ceiling shone dimly, its light harsh, almost painful. He held the telephone receiver in his hands, though the conversation was already over. His fingers trembled. His breathing was heavy, uneven. His heart beat as if trying to break free. They didn't understand. They think I was speaking of someone else. But it is me. I am that friend. I am the one they don't want to see. He closed his eyes. Inside him, the jungle came alive again. The explosion, the cries, the faces of his comrades. Johnny, Michael, Rodriguez, all of them looked at him, silently, with empty eyes. He opened his eyes and saw the empty room, cold, alien. His breathing grew uneven. He heard his own heartbeat. In that silence, each beat was loud, like a gunshot. He felt himself a stranger. Even here, in the city where people lived, laughed, made plans, he was alone. In the house, the parents continued their conversation. "We must wait," said the father. His voice was firm, confident. "He will return. We will talk. Everything will become clear." The mother nodded, but her breathing was heavy. She felt that time was slipping away. "And if—" her voice broke. "And if we lose him?" The father turned away. He did not want to hear those words. In the room, he sat staring at the empty wall. His breathing was fast. His heart pounded loudly. He felt that time was slipping away. "They will not accept me. They do not want me. I am a stranger." He rose, his steps heavy, the crutch scraping against the floor. He walked to the window. The cold wind struck his face. Below, the city glowed with lights. But to him, it was indifference. In the house, the parents sat in silence. The clock ticked. The lamp glowed. The air was warm. They decided to wait. Decided that everything could still be fixed. In the room, he stood at the window. The wind struck his face. His heart pounded loudly. He understood. There was no more time. Night. The city lived its own life. San Francisco shone with lights. Bridges glimmered with the glow of headlights. The streets buzzed with voices. It seemed the world was full of joy, movement, hope. But for him, all of it was foreign. He sat in his room, cold and empty. The walls were peeling. The bulb on the ceiling glowed dimly, its light harsh, almost painful. The wind seeped through the cracks in the window, carrying the smell of the sea and dampness. He listened to his own breathing. It was heavy, uneven. Each inhale and exhale echoed in his chest. His heart pounded loudly, as if a hammer struck iron. In that silence, every beat was heard like a gunshot. They will not accept me. They do not want me. I am a stranger. These words echoed in his head like a sentence. Memories. He closed his eyes and was back in the jungle. The damp air, the smell of gunpowder, the cries of comrades, the explosion, the instant of pain, the loss of an arm and a leg. All of it returned, as though time had never passed. He saw the faces of his friends. Johnny, Michael, Rodriguez. They looked at him silently, with empty eyes. "You should have gone with us," Johnny said. "Why did you stay?" asked Michael. "God took us, but left you," whispered Rodriguez. He opened his eyes and saw the empty room. But the voices still echoed. "I am a shadow. I am a burden. I am the one they rejected. Is less than #0. 5#. The roof. He rose. His steps were heavy. The crutch scraped against the floor. Each movement cost effort, but he walked. He left the room, climbed the stairs. The staircase was old, wooden. Each step resounded with a dull thud. His breathing quickened. His heart beat louder. He opened the door to the roof. The wind struck his face cold, salty. The city lights sparkled below like a scattering of stars. He took a step forward. The crutch scraped against the concrete. If I step, it will all end. The pain, the guilt, the loneliness. I will be with them again. Last thoughts. He stood at the edge of the roof. Below the street, cars, people. The height was frightening, yet alluring. He closed his eyes. Inside him memories came alive. The laughter of friends, their conversations, their dreams. The last cigarette, letters home, prayers before battle. All of it returned. He remembered his parents. His mother's voice warm, but confused. His father's voice firm, cold. Their words echoed in his head. We cannot allow something like that to interfere with our lives. Tears welled in his eyes. He had not cried since the day he lost his arm and leg. But now, the tears flowed freely, mixing with the wind. I am not the one they waited for. I am not the one they loved. I am a shadow. The fall. He stepped closer to the edge. The crutch scraped. His heart pounded loudly. The wind grew stronger. It seemed the city itself was pushing him forward. He lifted his head to the sky. The stars were dim, almost hidden by the city lights. But he saw them. And in those stars, he imagined the faces of his comrades. I'm coming, he whispered. He closed his eyes. Inside him was only one thing, the desire for peace. And he stepped. Silence. The world froze. For a moment everything went still, as if reality itself held its breath. The wind, which a second ago struck his face, now seemed soft, almost gentle, but in that gentleness was cold emptiness. The fall was swift, but for him, eternal. Each second stretched into infinity. He felt his body tear away from the roof, the space around turning into an abyss. The wind embraced him, pierced him, whistled in his ears, and that whistle was like a scream, the scream of the jungle, the scream of comrades, the scream of the world itself. His heart pounded louder, each beat reverberating in his head, his chest, every cell of his body. It seemed his heart was trying to outshout the fall, to hold him back, to bring him back, but it only quickened its rhythm, and that rhythm became the last music of his life. He saw the city lights, they stretched upward, turning into long streams of light. Cars, people, streets, all merged into one shining blur. And in that glow, he saw faces, Johnny, Michael, Rodriguez. They smiled, reached out their hands, called him to them. "I'm coming," he whispered, but the words dissolved into the wind. And then silence. It came suddenly, like a blow. No sound, no breath, no heartbeat. The world vanished, dissolved. Only emptiness remained cold, endless. But in that emptiness was a strange relief. The city continued to live. Lights shone, cars moved, people laughed. No one noticed that one life had ended. But for him, everything was over. Silence became his final home. The city. Below, the city continued to live. Cars moved along bridges and streets, their headlights leaving long trails of light. Like rivers of brightness flowing through the night, people hurried about their business, laughed, talked, carried shopping bags, held children by the hand. Storefronts glowed brightly, inviting, promising warmth and joy. No one noticed that a tragedy had occurred on the roof. No one heard how one man's heart beat louder and louder, then suddenly fell silent. For the city, it was just another evening, ordinary, noisy, full of motion. The wind from the bay carried the smell of salt and dampness, mingling with the aroma of coffee from nearby cafes. Music drifted from the open doors of bars, voices blended into a hum, and that hum was indifferent. The city lived as though nothing had happened, and above, on the roof, everything was over. Where a man had stood just a moment before, now there was emptiness. His step dissolved into the night. His breath disappeared. His heart stopped. And yet in this contrast there was something terrible and majestic. Below life, bright, noisy, indifferent. Above death, quiet, unnoticed, but final. The city did not stop. It did not notice the loss. For it was only a drop in the sea of lights, only a shadow disappearing into the dark. But for him, everything was over. And in that silence, in that indifference, lay the most terrible truth. The world goes on, even when a single life ends. The morning they did not want to meet. The phone call came early in the morning, when the light was still gray, timid, the kind of light in which there is always hope, but one that already arrives too late. The mother woke first. The ringing sounded insistent, anxious, as if the device itself understood that in those 3 short tones, a verdict was hidden. She rose, feeling the cold of the floor through the thin fabric of her slippers, and went to the phone. Her hand trembled, but she tried to hold the receiver firmly, as though the strength of her fingers determined the strength of her world. The voice on the other end was steady, professional, stripped of unnecessary emotion. He spoke the words carefully, almost gently, as if afraid they might cut. San Francisco police. An accident had occurred. Their son, the word son, struck like a heavy stone she could not hold. The father came later, and his first phrase was wordless. He simply placed his hand on his wife's shoulder. Together they listened to the rest of the news together, and each alone. The mother's heartbeat became irregular, as though the music inside had broken. Her breath was short, shallow. Her tongue tasted of salt. The father did not blink longer than usual, trying to hold with his gaze what was slipping away. They said nothing to each other, only began to prepare slowly, precisely, as one folds a street sign before a storm, carefully, yet knowing routine would save nothing. The road and the silence between words. On the plane they sat side by side, but between them lay an abyss of unsaid phrases. The mother held in her hands a small, many times folded cloth napkin, pressing her fingers to it like to an anchor. The father looked out the window at the clouds, which seemed too carefree in their whiteness. The vibration of the fuselage was steady, mechanical. In that steadiness the father found a temporary order, something to cling to like a handrail. The stewardess asked if everything was all right. The mother nodded, but her lips had no shape, only a line, too straight, as if scorched by a match. The father's heart beat slowly, stubbornly, each thud like a nail hammered into the lid of a toolbox. Everything in place, everything correct, everything far too late. San Francisco greeted them with wind carrying the salty smell of the bay and gasoline. The runway, the terminal, the taxi, all arranged in a simple, rigid sequence. Like a march performed without music. The father gave the address briefly, almost dryly: city service, morgue. The mother looked out the window. The bridge stretched its metallic spine over the water. Streetlights breathed evenly, like torches pressed from the darkness. She quietly synchronized her breathing with the rhythm of the wheels. Inhale, turn, exhale, brake. A small attempt to rewrite the world into understandable measures. Corridors where words become stones. Inside the building it was cold, not freezing, but businesslike cold. The kind of chill found in places where air exists only to preserve order. Fluorescent lamps emitted light that did not warm. The floor gleamed with cleanliness that made one want to look away. The father took the documents, a plastic folder, several forms, signatures, check marks. Each letter cut. He held the pen too tightly, so it squeaked slightly as if complaining about the weight of responsibility. The mother stood a little behind, her hands folded across her chest, fingers pressing against each other like two whispering children trying not to cry. The silence here was not empty. It rang. One could hear a door closing somewhere far in the building. Footsteps across the tiles, distinct, slightly weary, but no human voice to untangle their inner knot. The clerk spoke softly, standardized, but gentle. He offered them seats. They refused. He explained the procedure. They nodded, as if words had become bridges across a river, which they crossed, trying not to look down. The room where cold speaks first. He opened the door for them. Metal, white walls, light that sliced the space into sharp strips. The room smelled of cleanliness and something unnamed. Not formalin, not medicine, rather the absence of familiar sense of life. The mother inhaled deeply, cautiously, as though the air itself might wound her. The father placed his hand on the edge of the table, not on the surface, but on the very corner, as on a point of support. They were led to the place where beneath the sheet lay a shape. The mother closed her eyes for a second, not from pain, but from the need to gather herself into one line. The father nodded. "We are ready." His voice was low, hoarse, as if spoken from a well, but steady. The cloth was lifted not abruptly, but respectfully, almost tenderly. The mother saw the faces are always recognized faster than consciousness can grasp what it has seen. The lips slightly parted, as though he wanted to speak one more word. The father lowered his eyes for a second, to return breath to his chest, then raised them again, firmly, stubbornly, like a soldier on parade, and only then their gaze fell lower. Their world, built from words like temporary, accidental, imagined, collapsed quietly, without sound. The sheet lay smooth, but its line broke where the body ended earlier than it should. The mother did not cry out. The sound stuck between inhale and exhale, turned into silence louder than any scream. The father did not step back instead. He moved half a step forward, as if to shield him with his presence, though now it was impossible. Her eyelashes trembled, like those of someone boarding a train in pouring rain. Her heart beat too fast, not the rapid rhythm of panic, but the uneven tempo where each beat searches for support. He heard his own heart slowly. 1, 2, pause, 3, as though counting to numbers that no longer change anything. Words that came too late. It's... She did not finish the phrase. Her voice was thin, vulnerable, like a thread on a winter glove that one pulls carefully, knowing it will tear. So it was him. The father offered his shoulder, leaning slightly, so that her forehead touched his shirt. The fabric was coarse, but in it there was comfort. He straightened and quietly said, not to her, but to the space itself. He was speaking about himself. The clerk lowered his gaze. In his voice was official formality, behind which hid human caution. Phrases designed not to wound more than reality already did. We brought you his belongings. He handed them a small box. The father received it with both hands. As one receives a child, inside were small things. A folding knife, a worn wallet, a scrap of paper with scrawls, and an unfinished phrase like a bridge breaking off over a river. The mother ran her finger along the edge of the sheet, not touching him, but the line that separated now from then. Her breathing grew deeper, but not steadier. She listened to her inner noise, as one listens to a distant train, knowing it is not coming here, but still following it with her eyes. We said, the father began, then stopped. He searched for a word that could undo consequences. He did not find it. We said the wrong thing. Silence, that knows more. They stood for a long time. No one counted. The lamps hummed softly, evenly the way electricity hums when it does not notice to whom it gives light. Somewhere a cart squeaked, somewhere a distant door slammed. But in this room the silence was almost ceremonial. It held people as strong ice holds in spring with all its strength, knowing it will soon crack. The mother finally stepped back, as one steps away from a photograph to see it whole. Her eyes did not seek excuses, they sought the chance to understand. Where was the fork in the road, where one could have turned differently? The father closed the box and pressed it to his chest. His heart beat directly beneath the wooden lid, slowly, but loudly. He heard himself as one listens to old clocks. Not for the exact time, but to be sure they still run. The clerk gently suggested, "You may stay a little longer." The father nodded. The mother nodded. They stayed. Sometimes words give nothing. But the right to stay gives time. And time is the only thing that can reach the edge and return at least half a step. The city that knows no names. When they stepped outside, the air felt different, not cold, but grateful. Outside, San Francisco still shimmered with lights. Moved, breathed. Cars passed, people spoke. The wind carried music from the bars. The city did not know their names, did not know his name. The city never knows how many stories one evening contains. They sat in the taxi in silence. The driver asked where to go, and the father gave the hotel address, suggested at reception a short word, almost without consonants. The mother lowered her head, listening to her own breathing. Inhale shorter than usual. Exhale longer, as though words and strength were leaving her. The father held the box on his knees as if it were a chalice. Each thud of his heart echoed in the wood, like the quiet knock of knuckles on a table. The room where words still need not be spoken. The hotel smelled of polished wood and old carpet. The room was simple. 2 armchairs, a small table, a bed, a lamp with a soft shade. They did not turn on the television. The screen was too black. The father placed the box on the table without opening it. The mother sat in the armchair and clasped her hands. Her fingers found each other and held on. "He called us," she finally said, her whisper like paper being crumpled carefully. "He asked that a friend live with us. He was asking about himself. He knew we were afraid. And still, he asked." The father nodded slowly, like a tree bending under the wind, not arguing, but accepting. His breathing grew deeper. He looked at his own hands, at the lines that seemed to lead from past to future, but were frozen in the present. "We were afraid," he said. "We were afraid not of him, but of ourselves. Afraid of becoming different. And we did. Only now, without him." The mother did not cry. Tears had come and gone back there, in the room of light and metal. Now there was emptiness, not destructive, but insistent. She heard her pulse in her temples, as though a small hammer hid there, beating rhythm. In that measure, it suddenly became clear. The fear that keeps people from love is always hungrier than the grief itself. Words that will remain. Late at night, the mother approached the table and opened the box. Inside, tiny things no one would ever notice on the street. An old ticket, a broken pen, an unfinished note. On the scrap of paper were a few words uneven, as written by a tired hand, "I will return with a friend." The last letter trembled, as though written on a ship in a storm. The father took the paper and placed it back not as removal, but as acknowledgement. He embraced his wife carefully, so as not to break what little remained whole. "We did not lose him in the war," the mother said. "We lost him at home, where we should have been stronger." The father did not answer with words. He nodded slowly, heavily, and in that nod was everything. Recognition, guilt, and the yes that comes too late. They sat side by side, hearing how each of their hearts beat differently. Hers faster, his deeper. In that difference was a shared music, the music of those who have learned to listen to each other when speaking is already too late. A morning without words. At dawn, San Francisco was gray again, timid. They knew. They would have to do everything that is done in such cases: signatures, calls, arrangements. The world always demands order where people only want to sit and hold hands. They did not argue. They simply walked step by step, as one walks across a bridge where the water roars too loudly. And yet already inside them, something new was slowly forming. Not justification, not salvation, a thin layer of memory. Unwilling to let oblivion work alone, she touched the box as one touches a wound. Not to check if it hurts, but to say, "I am here." He took her hand, asking no questions, making no promises, simply so their two hearts could say thud in one rhythm. They left the room, closed the door, and for a moment stood in the corridor, listening to how their own breathing quietly subsided. The city was already waking. It lived again. It still did not know their names. But they knew one name and one truth they could no longer postpone. And in that knowledge was not a farewell tragedy but responsibility. The very responsibility that comes after all the calls, after all the forms, after all the belated, "We were afraid." Responsibility for those who will return with a friend, and for those who will learn to listen before it is too late. They walked on, soundless, slowly, as walk people who now know the price of every breath, every heartbeat, every word spoken in time. San Francisco once again lived its own life. The city lights shone. The streets bustled. People hurried about their business. But in one house, in one family, there remained an emptiness that could never be filled. The parents returned home carrying a heavy burden, not only their son's belongings, but also the truth they had understood far too late. He had asked for acceptance, for a place beside them, for simple human warmth. But fear proved stronger. And now his voice echoed only in memory, like a phone call that no one would ever hear again. This story is not only about war and its wounds. It is about how easily people can turn away from another's pain, and how terrifying it is to realize that indifference became the final step toward tragedy. His memory remains. It lives in words, in letters, in the silence that comes after the fall. And everyone who hears this story must remember, sometimes a single word of support can save a life. If this story touched you, if you believe that memory and storytelling can change hearts and destinies, support our project. Subscribe to the channel Soldier's Note, where we share stories that must never be forgotten. Every subscription is a step toward ensuring that the voices of soldiers, their pain and their hopes do not dissolve into silence. Together, we can preserve their memory and make sure such tragedies never happen again. Subscribe, share, leave your comments. Let their stories live on.